Okay, so anyway, welcome to Hollywood on VR. This is actually part of the concept to be to be struggling with tech. And I have three wonderful guests. I'm super happy. Normally, I would start with you, Laura, but I'm going to start with the Hollywood guys for once. And I'm going to start because we have two people from Hollywood. We have here Andrew. And Andrew is a storyteller, and it always starts with a story. That's why I wanted to start with you. So he's combining a passion for cinema and literature. He is actually working deep into the Hollywood system. He's now responsible for VR at the Oscar-winning production company River Road Entertainment. And Andrew has, And Andrew has been consulting for a variety of different companies in Hollywood, including the Sundance Institute. He has been also a story analyst, and he most recently worked on the story department at Steven Spielberg Emblem Partners. This is nice because I have a Steven Spielberg content here in a second. So this is Andrew. Thank you so much for the first speaker. The second speaker will be then to go on with the production side of the business is Christopher Sibley. Christopher consults companies, producers, and actors on how to plan and set up their 360 degrees and VR production. And Christopher, I learned a new word with you. You said you have become a multi-hyphenate from pre-production to post. I think that's really interesting. You have been you have been the lead creator behind VRBB, Future Stories conference in partnership with Leap Motion and Violet Crown Cinemas. And you have been consulting, among others, Michael Schamberg in Conceptualist VR and New Media. I would say that's quite a track record. Thank you, Christopher. Welcome, Christopher, also. And then we will go on. Last but not least, and now you understand why my storytelling started with gentlemen today. It's because Laura is in a distribution company, so to speak, which will be probably the next big platform for VR content. Laura Jeffords Greenberg is the Senior Vice President of Business and Legal Affairs at LittlStar. And LittlStar is the leading global platform dedicated to immersive virtual reality and 360 degrees content. This is why I kept you for the end, but for sure you will be definitely integrated in the Hollywood system today. So this is a panel, and as I'm a bit tired to be at panels where we do not deal with the questions which have been announced in the blurb, I will repeat the three questions we're going to deal with in this panel. The first one will be how Hollywood approaches VR, and we're going to answer that question. Second, we're going to go to when immersive content will emancipate from being a promotion tool and go beyond. This is the second question. And the third question will be, what can we expect from known actors, directors, DOPs, or directors of experience? Let's see what's coming. And I would like to have somehow like 10 minutes each so that we deal with this question. And I want these guys to go out on knowing what we've been talking about. So this is how we're going to go on. I am just asking if my presentation is going to work. Because it is not online, I just want to see it. And then, we see it here. No? Okay. No? Okay, no presentation. Well, I had great slides with loads of contents and sound, but okay. Oh, and the mic is not working?
Hello?
Yes.
There we are. I just wanted to say hello and thank all of you for being here and say that we are going to attempt to answer these questions to our best of our ability. But
without the presentation, without the content. I was saying, well, what I can do is I can tell you what we wanted to start with. I can even do it. It is actually the player of Ready Player One of Steven Spielberg. So you see this guy, I was born in 2025. He puts his glasses on and he's entering, he's saying, we are the last generation, we don't know where to go because there is no place to go, he says. And then he puts his glasses on and he says, except the oasis. And he goes inside. So that is a clip. I cannot go elaborate, but this is how it goes on.
Quite good. That was better.
So, yeah, I'm not applying for Hollywood, but we can work on it. So, no, the good thing is this example is simply that this format is a little bit like the Matrix. We could not take the pill in the Matrix, but Ready Player One is actually going to show us how VR is working. So it will be a major piece in introducing VR to a next level, I think. But now I have enough. It's not about me, actually. I don't want to act so much. I just want to say, we have some conditions in VR right now. The audience is super small. The places to show and distribute VR are super expensive. So what's happening right now, what can we do, actually, to bring it to the next level? So now we have super small audiences. What do you think are the reasons why we were just in a panel before, you were not there, in a talk before, we were saying like, oh, with National Geographic, we have 20 million people watching. This is great. But actually, this is 1,000 people having the VR glasses. So is it only the tech? I would like to have a little small round with you first.
So since I'm holding the mic, I'll go ahead and give a swing at an answer there. I think that the primary answer is that it's not just VR, it's that we need to multi-platform. So we need to have a combination of mixed reality, of augmented and virtual.
Absolutely.
It's not at all just about transporting people to a space alone. We need to tap into the community experience in order to maximize the potentiality of any experience.
Okay. Laura, what's your point on this? What do you think are the limitations for now of the reality of today in VR and the limit to the distribution?
I definitely would piggyback on what you said, that we need to expand into augmented and mixed reality and virtual reality. And as the population sort of adopt all of those technologies, I think that will then increase the use of head-mounted displays. I mean, right now we're seeing all the numbers in mobile.
Okay.
So I think that's sort of the first transition. We can get people in, get them used to 360 video, and then through augmented reality, location-based experiences, hopefully then drive them to use their head-mounted displays at home. So I think it'll take a little while to get there.
Absolutely. Andrew?
I mean, I agree with both of those, and I think part of it as well is education to the audience and a little bit of marketing on that level too, just because I think 360 has been sort of the easy entry point on YouTube and things like that for people to at least experience that, but there's still sort of a mindset within the audience that if you're doing VR, it's for a game, or it's a very limited sort of niche thing. So to broaden out that horizon and show that there is content out there, which goes to another issue of having more content out there. But just the accessibility of that right now, because a lot of people are on their phones or on YouTube, but the gear and the hardware has been a limitation for a lot of people with the expense just to get in on that, which all that is coming down now. So I think the barrier for entry is getting a little bit easier for the audience, but getting sort of that education or that marketing out there that there is the availability of, and distribution platforms are a huge part of that.
Absolutely.
Of where you can go.
Exactly. One of the slides I was bringing was showing the difficulties to actually install some VR cinemas. So one of the slides was like somebody was with the glasses freaking out, watching something in a, like a small cinema place in front of a nice Hollywood cinema, actually. Do you think that we can compare this to the days of early cinema, to continue with the analogy with Hollywood? Do you think it is like, it's going to be the start of something big like this?
Well, I mean, I think that answers a question, or poses a question that's really interesting just in the amount of storytelling. Because I think each technology that we see, whether it was the moving picture or sound or color, all of those had a sort of educational thing that we had to get used to something new. There was storytelling around the fireplace, and then there was, theater in the round. And so it was a new sort of format. And I think VR is that next step for us. But in Hollywood, everyone keeps asking the question of how do we tell a film in VR?
Yes.
And I think it's the wrong question. I think it's what story can we tell in VR, and what does the platform allow us to do, and what is it, what do we want to do with that? And instead of limiting ourselves into well, no, we want to tell a 2-hour film in VR. I think that's sort of the wrong approach, and Hollywood has been, and this is a general statement obviously, but I think they've been fixated on that because they want to stay in the cinema mindset that we're going to sit down for 2 hours and have an audience locked in.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's right.
That's right. But the reality of today is actually to put a little add-on as a promotional tool on top of this or next to it. So it means in the video I had brought with Spider-Man, it's quite interesting because you have a little sequel of Spider-Man. The guy is taking you become Spider-Man. You can really see it and etc. This is nice, but it's not even the voice of the actors there. It's not even anything like which has to do with the real thing, right? Is it actually, and this is maybe a legal question, is it something which has to do with the extension of the IP rights, which was not planned as a promotional tool first, or? What do you think? If I'm Spider-Man production company and I want to promote this, did you think, are there any legal issues behind this?
I don't think so if it's the studio that is making Spider-Man and they're doing a promotional, they would have all the legal rights. But I think, as you brought up, it depends how much is the actor going to get paid to use his voice.
Okay. So it's all about money. No money to produce longer thing, no money to put the cinemas. So we have a little bit of money to do some promotion thing.
I just want to jump in. One of the companies I worked with, Create Advertising, they work directly with Sony and do a lot of the marketing promotional materials for like Ghostbusters and the Walk experience.
Okay.
And it's, in that case, I remember working directly with the creator, Jake Black, and he was saying that the amount of the line item that they give you for some sort of marketing or promotional experience as a part or a pinup of a video or feature is very low for what you want to do. So for the 3 Ghostbuster video game experiences we were building, I think we had like this much when we needed this much to create something of any value, right?
Right.
But it's hard to get approvals on a model that we all know is not necessarily proven unless it's a marketing piece, right? So we were given a little bit, thrown a little bit of budget to work with, but I would say that the biggest reason and or detriment or thing holding us back was that like you can't necessarily demand the type of budget you would hope for in a legitimate experience, something that's meaningful.
At the Changing the Picture conference last week, we had Drew from the ETC who has been producing the Buffalo, Wonder Buffalo. And he was saying now in his production, he's always thinking a little bit before, like what sort of old formats are going to come for the production to plan to reduce the cost instead of producing on top afterwards. And I think in Hollywood there is also the Rogue initiative, right? With Pixar, DreamWorks, Disney, trying to initiate all these VR extensions on a earlier level. So is this what's going to happen? Are the studios, will they plan in advance to integrate VR? Maybe not for a 2-hour film that we are saying, Andrew, but to plan a bit more around the big film? Yeah, can go on.
I think on that level, the last 2 years or so where we've started to see these pieces come out, it's always been in hindsight. It's like, well, now we have this film out and we should think about this because VR is a thing.
Yes.
And so it becomes sort of a hindsight problem that they're trying to fix. And that's why the budgets for VR in film are always coming out of marketing. It's not budgeted beforehand. It's not thought about beforehand. You're seeing that a little bit differently, like Ridley Scott, for instance, with his most recent Alien film. They started to think about that early on and how can we integrate that and sort of have a piece to promote, but it's still promotional, but how can we have an experience to promote the piece before it comes out? But so we're starting to see that a little bit earlier now.
Exactly. So maybe this is the bridge to our next question, because we can move on from promotional formats to really thinking about this. And I think the best proof we have is the announcement that a special Oscar statuette will be presented for the first time for VR, for the piece of Alejandro Inarritu, Carne y Arena. And you remember there are only half a dozen of special Oscars which have been attributed since they've been launched, and one of those led to the Best Animated Feature category. So does it show us there is hope for a new category VR in Hollywood with the Oscars? I mean, that's quite something.
I think, it's the first step, which is great. And we've seen stuff, Andy Serkis, for instance, who's the big motion capture actor from Planet of the Apes and stuff like that, has been trying to push for actors to get acknowledgement when they're doing motion capture performances and saying that it's the same ability of acting there as a live action piece. And so I think seeing a special thing for Inity too this year, it is that gateway to kind of get a little bit more attention for narrative pieces coming forward and those experiential pieces. I don't know if we're going to get a category quite yet, because this is the first time we've done one since Toy Story. So it's been a long time, but it's a nice next step for the technology.
That's right. Actually, we should not say it's a VR category, because in Carnegie Arena, you have real sand, you have a waiting room where it's cold. So it's really like mixed reality or alternate or hybrid reality, really. So I hope it will lead us a little bit further. Maybe I would like to ask Laura, what do you think that VR is actually today needing to succeed more in Hollywood? Do you think it is really more financial support or more support of key actors? I mean, it could be the studios, it could be key influencers like directors, actors being hologram. We're going to go further on it a little bit further. What do you think does Hollywood need to go beyond these promotional tools?
I think it's a combination of all those things that you mentioned. First, we need to get out of the mindset with the studios, which are slow to change, that it is just a marketing piece. So the most successful pieces on our platform are promotional pieces for existing IP. So we do know from that people are drawn to existing IP. So if you have something that someone knows, or an actor or a director that people are familiar with, they actually will actively seek that out. So I think to really bring people into the medium, we probably are going to have to build on existing IP, but hopefully I would like to see actually more original content rather than, you know, a promotion for the Alien video, and do that with, you know, what is familiar to audiences. I think that really would is part of the key.
Yes, please.
I just wanted to touch on that briefly. One of the things Andrew and I have been trying to do is tap into original IP, but utilize kind of classic authors, like preeminent authors in history. So for example, Edgar Allan Poe is an American author, but is world known, right? So you have a worldwide audience by doing adaptations of his work in a new and fresh way that could be both educational for schools, but also be kind of co-opted and made into an entertainment piece as well for someone like Amazon, as their miniseries on Google Daydream.
Yeah.
Is a very, I think, smart way to utilize new original IP, but in a, grounded in a world-known preeminent author, right?
Yeah.
So that's, I would say, another alternative and way to think about that, instead of just these existing PAPs and doing marketing adaptations of them.
Marketing or arts, because I think actually Carnegie Arena will be seen at the LACMA Museum in LA. So we have to see, it's a moment where it could skip into, oh, it's going to be a piece of art and it already belongs to the museum. You know, but we will see the next talk, the hype is over, but actually it's the beginning after the end or something like this. But I think it's an interesting question, but I don't want to go into the art piece of it, because it would be a full different panel. It would be fascinating to show all of this. I would like to come back to this idea of, okay, we have Carnegie Arena now with Iranitu, and I mean, do we need to see super famous directors who have already having Oscars? And also the DOP of Carnegie Arena, Lubetsky, already had an Oscar. So is the hope that the guys having Oscars and being super famous really go into VR to make this happen? To be like, a help as a start, like a car, when you want to drive a car at the beginning? Like, are they the starters, like so that it really takes off?
I don't think it's necessary. You don't have to have that. It certainly is a good accelerator.
Accelerator, thank you.
Yeah. I think that most importantly is that we have these directors that are actually coming from a post-production standpoint, and or creative directors that have experience in production design, that have a sense of classic theater, right? Because we're working in a medium now that is essentially theater of the round, but inverted, right? And so having someone that is savvy in post-production VFX or production design as a director, even if they are an unknown, I think that's where you're going to get content that's meaningful and profound enough to actually catch an audience and want it to spread, right?
Absolutely.
So-
I think also, and this leads us more to the third part of the discussion about like, okay, what sort of directors do we need? What sort of DOPs do we need? Do they need a new skill set and etc.? One of the content is still not on, but I cannot play the last one I brought because it's separating. You have to choose between two things. It was done, it's called Broken Night. Please Google it in case you want to see it live. But Broken Night is really a piece where you have a choice. It has been done by this, I think it's a New York company also, Interlude. You know, they give always the choice between two things. So it's really like exploring all the realities, and then you are killing someone, but suddenly you are not killing someone. And then you are with your husband, and then you're not with your husband anymore. I mean, it's really like you have to be careful not to be completely schizo with that one. But it's a very good example to show. And the actors, who are actually a couple in real life, were saying, so suddenly we were alone in this room with this camera robot, and we had to play like in theater. So definitely this is something new opening up. And yeah, so I mean, maybe to you, Christopher, do you think that we will see maybe at the universities, at USC, new skill sets mixing up with architecture, with theater, to give it the new dimension?
Absolutely. I think that even already the gaming lab at USC, for example, where Andrew and I went to school, is incorporating elements of virtual, augmented, and mixed realities. They're already training kids to and encouraging them to build new platforms and prototypes of their own to create and advance the space. I think that also there's going to be a lot more merging between the film and gaming programs now, because it essentially is they're synonymous or becoming closer and closer in this medium. But I think one of the coolest aspects of all of that is that in each instance where I've engaged with some sort of institute or schooling, they are all encouraging educational VR. And so whether through their own education or encouraged to create their own educational VR content, that is really, I think, interesting to me and one of my big passions. So the answer, to directly answer your question, I would say yes. I think there's going to be a merging of these platforms in both film and gaming, and you're already starting to see it at some of the, at least some of the schools, the film schools in and around LA, and certainly I think it will be the case in other kind of tech-heavy cities or industries.
Exactly. Yeah. Talking about tech and heavy tech, Laura, I know that LittlStar is actually filtering the content for distribution so that it looks good, so that you're not getting sick by watching the content. I mean, you know, I still hear about this in conferences, like, oh, I cannot watch VR because I'm getting sick, and etc. So I know that LittlStar is very demanding about the quality of the content that you are streaming there. And I would like to know, talking about the DOPs now, do they have to consider certain things? Do we need to tell them how to film, what to do? Are there specific requirements for the DOPs coming now for VR?
Yes, definitely. I think, as we were saying before, to kind of bring it all together, when we've been working with some of the bigger studios in the United States, they actually are having problems because people who are coming from traditional media don't know how to use 360 video or how to film, and the actors are not accustomed to it. And then if on the other side they hire the tech people who do the post-production or know how to actually stitch together the 360 video, they do not come from an entertainment background, so they have no idea how to produce. So there actually is this void right now. So I'm glad that students are learning, but the big studios are running into a problem where they're not finding anyone that is actually able to blend the traditional media world with the technology to be able to utilize it in the right way. So they are experimenting, but we need to educate people in that way.
Yeah, so it's money, it's distribution, but it actually starts with the education of people here. You know, here in the region, we have a film university. It's the only film university in Germany, actually. So if there are any students from film university now, or someone from film university, I don't know if I've seen Rengin here, we know this, we're going to work on this for sure. But coming back from the beginning of the story to you, Andrew, do you already think differently when you are starting to write a story? You know, like, are you already like, I mean, we know the world building experience. We remember one of the most visionary film we had with Minority Report and the work of Alex McDowell, who was actually conceiving the world together with the beginning of the story before Minority Report was shot. Is this what we have coming up right now more?
I think so. I think that's what we honestly need, and it's a really cool element because film has always been such a collaborative platform. But what we're seeing right now, or I hope what we're moving towards, and something Chris and I have really been trying to build together too, is getting writers talking with post-production and production design and DPs before they start to create it, because all of that is going to influence the project and the piece on the page.
Completely,
And so creating that, and so we've been speaking with young writers and developing material with them and trying to give them that technical know-how prior to constructing the story, because otherwise you're just going to get it back and they're going to show it to the post-production team and they're going to have no idea what to do with it and are going to influence the story, especially if there's interactive elements or things like that. It needs to be expressed on the page. And it actually brings up a whole new point with, you know, we're seeing changes in technology for writers because Final Draft isn't actually answering all of the questions yet in a standard format. And so you're seeing overwritten scripts that are now 30 pages long for a 5-minute experience, because you're having to describe each of those beats and elements. And so, like, how do you showcase that when you're reading a 2D page of what that's going to look like, directionality, when you're trying to perceive an entire room and an entire world? So it's really fascinating. And so, like, having those conversations with the entire team before you go into production is really important. And it's a great thing to build the team with.
Christopher?
And just really quickly to tag on the end of that, if anyone here is interested in hearing about, after the talk, we have a friend of ours that's developed a software program for virtual reality screenplay writers. So he's figured out ways to embed descriptions within a space so that you can have north, south, east, and west instead of having it all on the same page. And it's a collaborative online cloud-based system. So if anyone wants to afterwards talk to us about that, we can discuss.
I'm the first on your list. This is super interesting. This is great. Okay, so before we move on to Q&As, because I would like to give the opportunity to everyone to ask you, coming from so far away. So I just want a short statement from all of you, one by each, starting with the ladies, to tell me, like, so what is what do you think is the main challenge? We'll be talking about a couple of things, but what do you think is the main challenge to go from promotional tool to a VR film? What do you think is the key reason why it's not happened yet, so to speak, and what does it need to go there? You can tell me money, you can tell me whatever, I don't care. You tell me what you think, what it could be to bring it to that next level.
I'll go with probably the easy one, but investment.
Yeah.
Because then you can invest in technology, you can invest in money, or invest in content. And once money's in there, then we can get, I think, a better array of content and more choices for the consumers.
Okay, so it's all about money. The first slide that we didn't see was saying Hollywood is a little bit hesitating because they don't know how to monetize this. So it will be the investment from the start, but also learn how to remonetize it and have a return on investment. That's for sure. Thank you. That's a very good statement. Who wants to go next? Andrew.
I guess I'll be a bit of an optimist here. I think that a lot of us in the VR community are making statements like, well, it's moving slowly and we're not quite there yet, but we're in a whole new frontier. And so, like, I think we're moving at whatever pace it is, and it is building. And so I think the creativity, we're at a really cool, place in time that it's kind of like the 80s and independent filmmaking. And so you're seeing, established filmmakers like Ridley Scott and Inarritu doing stuff, and that's incredible because it's championing the cause and moving it forward in a very commercial format. But it is sort of the independent world and those mavericks out there who are building stuff on a much smaller scale to make it accessible at this juncture. Because, Inarritu's thing is at LACMA. And it's $30 or $40 to go to, and it's a limited audience because you can only bring one person through every 10 minutes, and so it's that sort of scale. And so I think the creativity and collaboration is where we're at right now in VR, and people are actually communicating and working together because we all want to be moving forward together. So I think we're at a very cool place, and as soon as we start to monetize it, people are going to start withholding as they do. So I think we're at a cool format to be working together and moving forward. So I think we should just be excited about that.
Well, that's nice. That's nice that I have three panelists with different facets about this. So that's very good. Christopher, now I'm curious to hear what you say.
That's so positive. I think I'm going to hark back to what we were talking about earlier, a combination of education in terms of the creatives, understanding what goes into the technical side, but then I'm going to add an element of access. So not in terms of viewership, but in terms of the creators having access to a Unity suite or Unreal, or given the opportunity to work directly with these editing softwares, and given the opportunity to learn how to use it in an easy way.
Yeah.
So like the concept of understanding how to edit a node can be difficult unless it's explained in a great and simplified version or way.
Yeah.
So I would say education and having the access to the tools.
Yeah. Okay, so if I recapitulate
quality
your
content.
recapitulation, we need education and talents, we need collaboration, and we need money. So I hope this will happen in Hollywood, and I think this will also happen here at Babelsberg. We have the studios here also. So let's see how it's going to go on in the next year. So now I'm going to take a couple of questions. It is, I know, lunchtime, but hold on. So who would like to ask these wonderful panelists and great experts? Now or never? Okay, here you go. There is a microphone coming up. Please tell us your name, what you're doing, and to whom you would like to ask a question, please.
Yes, I am Fabio. I am a movie director, and I would like to ask the gentleman in the red trousers, actually, sorry, my English is not so good.
Christopher, yeah.
Christopher. You said that you would be working on a way to do screenplays, but have you guys worked out a way to do storyboards, actually, for VR? Have you found some solution about it? Thank you.
The short answer is no. No. Okay. No. Yes, in this kind of prototype, this beta that has been built, there is a section that gives you an opportunity to describe each location, dimensionality, but also incorporate drawn images. And then there is hopefully, if Jesse does it right, you can have like pre-rendered VFX as well. So you can give the opportunity for the post-production supervisor to be working directly with and collaborate with the writers simultaneously to the development of the project.
Super. Next question. Thank you.
Hi,
I'm blended, I can't see. Yeah, okay,
Hi,
please.
my name's Leslie. I come from the fashion film, advertising, branding industry. And it's a new genre of film, but I see a lot of technology, and I'm thinking that VR is going to be very important to the fashion industry. Can you give a comment on that?
Yeah, okay. I definitely agree with you. We've been talking to different fashion designers and labels, and being based out of New York in Soho, we also obviously have New York Fashion Week. I think 360 video actually is using it in fashion, especially during Fashion Week, is a great use of that technology, because part of being at a fashion show is not just watching people walk down the runway, but also who is there. So it's something that we're looking to get on our platform and are excited about.
Okay. Last question. Oh, okay. Thank you for bringing the microphone.
Thank you. I'm not going to ask a question to the sir in the red pants, but Laura. LittlStar, you guys been around for quite some time. I think I first saw you at Sundance 2014 or 15. And you're doing pretty well in the current industry, and there's this rationalization. Can you maybe tell the audience what's the ride been for you so far, and what are you expecting from 2018?
Sorry, can you repeat the last part again?
And what are you expecting of next year, 2018? For you guys, but also in terms of the 360 video industry, because you've been around quite some time, and what you're doing okay, and what's the upward trajectory, difficult word, sorry.
Well, thank you. So obviously we're a 360 degree video distribution platform, and what we're looking towards next year, hopefully by the end of this year, is to move into interactive experiences. So you'll be able to watch either 360 video on our platform, and then also have interactive experiences, whether that's apps, games, any number of different experiences, as well as monetization. We know that monetization is key, so we're looking at doing ad-supported for experiences and also for 360 video, as well as a transactional model. Then hopefully when we have enough content and or experiences, experiment with subscription model as well. So that's what we're really looking forward to next year.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you for the great questions. And 2 announcements.